Let's see if this is gonna work first. This is my third attempt at trying to get this broadcast up, and I had to downgrade the quality of the video a bit to see if this will hold. But, so this patch came out today, which basically is a bit unsatisfying. So we have yet another patch that they've released where no real balance changes have happened. A few balance changes, don't get me wrong, but nothing really major. I'm fine with that. The game is in a relatively stable state. I'm not going to call it healthy. I think the game is incredibly demon-sided right now. And I think a lot of content creators have finally realized that the demon side is by far the majority power side. Which, I'm glad to see that. But this video, I apologize if the audio is too high, by the way, on the game with this background music and shit. I have my TV audio turned down a bit, so if it's too loud, my apologies. But the game's lacking a bit of content, right? The prestige system was supposed to give you a way to fix this, but they kind of went way too over the edge with this, and I think this prestige system is really poorly designed. So first off, talking about balance changes. Some character, none of the demons really received any big changes. I mean, Puppeteer got a small nerf. But I'm looking at this will kind of review the last patch. The weapons that they release are really not that great. The mace, they released the first set of weapons, by the way. You had the mace, and you had the explosive crossbow. The mace was good. The crossbow kind of sucks. Then, the next patch cycle, we get the nail gun and the syringes. The nail gun is either you love it or hate it, and the syringes suck. I absolutely hate the syringes, by the way. They are by far the worst weapon in the game. Worst melee weapon in the game. And then you have this patch cycle where you've got the repeating crossbow and the staff, which the repeating crossbow I don't have enough hands-on time with to really get a feel for it. But the staff is terrible. So again, really disappointing in what they've added there. Now, the characters that they've added are pretty good. They added... Mia is... I've commented on Mia before. I think Mia is an interesting play style, but it's not like a very great, like, game-breaking type play style. David is mediocre. The blacksmith is really unique. And whether he's good or bad is, I think, up for debate. Some people say he's overpowered. Some people think he's a bit on the weaker side just because he doesn't have access to the guns. And on the demon side, you have this situation of everybody saying Plaguebringer's OP, Plaguebringer's OP. But nobody plays her because she has no high-end damage potential. All of the demons in the game received a buff to the AI's aggressiveness. And combine that with the fact that Warlord and Necromancer are basically swarm units, buff damage and health, and they can murder you in such a short amount of time. Puppeteer is similar in that they are a buff damage style killer, but with one unit at a time. So Puppeteer is kind of interesting to me. Puppeteer is just really good in that 1v1 setting, whereas the other demons are really good in strength and numbers. Plaguebringer is really gimmicky. She feels really gimmicky and really difficult to play unless you know how to play the other killers already. Now, another issue that this game has had is this game has stability issues. Like right now, I've had shitty internet, and this game is like unplayable because I lag so often. I'm really frustrated playing this game right now because of my building's internet. If I'm playing solo, I'm fine. But as soon as I invite somebody to a party or join a party, the quality goes downhill. It makes using guns almost unplayable because of the delay. I will swing, and whatever I was swinging at is already gone because it's moved behind me. But this issue is more on my end. I'm suffering on this end. Part of the reason why I haven't been able to play, the solo experience for the game is terrible. And the survivor base for this game sucks. The demon player base either doesn't know what they're doing, is toxic as fuck, or very rarely you get a decent killer that's kind of fun to play against. But most of the issues have to do with the survivor side, where the survivor side feels underpowered because you're supposed to work together, and 90% of the survivors in this game do not work together. They do not work together. They are going to get you killed. And because of that, I don't want to play with the survivors no matter what. It's like, you have to prove yourself now. Now, one of the things they did is they made it to where you can see the prestige level, obviously, when you go in and you prestige, you get the emblem around your name. I kind of wish that that emblem was visible at the character select screen, as opposed to when you get into a game. Also, there's no real indicator. Like, if you look at these insignias here on the right, there's no real distinction. So you have level 1 right here where you have the leaves. Level 2 is a bit higher. Level 3 is a bit higher with the SAR, so that's pretty noticeable. Level 4 has the fingers, that's noticeable. And level 5 has the skulls. Here's the main problem with this, though. While these 3 are noticeable, it's very hard to get to these 3 without a lot of spirit points. I haven't been able to stockpile spirit points because I can't really play the game. I've still been leveling. It took me... I finished Mia recently. I just finished David. His video's coming up next. I have not finished the Blacksmith. I haven't even started on the Plaguebringer, because I have not been able to get anybody to play this game, because since the Mia update, the game non-stop crashing for everybody I've played with. It only recently got fixed. And now my internet is shit, and my internet makes me not want to play the game because of how unfun it is when I swing at something and they're now 3 feet behind me and have already hit me. But that's not the point of this. I'm kind of rambling a little bit. Let's talk about the balance of the prestige. That's the last thing I want to finish on. We'll talk about the changes. The only real changes to note is they nerfed David base. They nerfed Henry base, and they reworked Arthur a little bit, which I find questionable. That's the only major changes on this side with this balance update, which I really think they need to buff the Survivor back up again. Now, a lot of characters did receive minor tweaks to their skills because of how the prestige system works. So the prestige system works like this. We're going to get on Arthur and show you with this. So you level up your character normally the first time. You get them to 25, you get all your skill points and assign them, you unlock your abilities here. Okay, that's fine. You have a prestige. So, here's the issue though, and this is the main thing. A lot of people are talking about this. Do you see how grindy these challenges are? You have an absurd... I've only played one game as Arthur since his patch dropped, because I needed to get some sleep. Get my game plan together on this. These challenges are utterly absurd. This is for one tier. This is for one tier of prestige. If you are already level 25 on your character, they did not say, hey, you're already 25, we haven't been keeping track of your objectives, so you should prestige for free. That's the thing I think. And that goes for same on the demon side. If you look at the demon side, some of your prestige stuff on the demon side is just as ridiculous. Now, the dealing damage one is easy. You can do that a lot quicker on the demon side than you can on the survivor side. But some of this stuff is bullshit. Because performing 450 successful demonic dashes, and you see as you go further and further down, these are relatively easy to do if you're a good demon. Some of these are ridiculous, like the summoning 450 boss units or possessing 870 survivors, because it's very difficult to get some of those unlocked. Some of these things are simply not possible. Another thing too, if you look at the prestige one here, so my game with Arthur, we died on second point. So 173 seconds. So, obviously, that would have been around 300 seconds if we had, for that game. It'd be about 300 seconds if we had popped that objective. Think about that. That's 300 a game on objective. The performing headshots one, or the performing finishers one, is annoying. Because some characters don't want to do finishers in the leader category. Let's start with that first here. Like, Annie is going to go for finishers a bit more because of her balance bar. Arthur doesn't want to do finishers except when his power is up. Ash wants finishers like it's nothing. But at the same time, you look, Arthur is mostly a warrior in a leader body, especially with the pink F changes. He doesn't want to use guns as much as the other two do. So the headshot one is stupid for him. I see that a lot. Support, they really want you to play support around fast forward. That's one thing I've noticed. They want you to into fast forward. I'm noticing that, and I'm not really a fan of that. But it is what it is. Oh, I do need to change that David build around because the sheer grind of this makes it impossible to pre-build. Like, I put a spare point into Devastating Force. I have no reason to do that. That ability is just simply not worth it on David right now because of how hard it is to prestige. So now I'm sitting here trying to figure out, okay, where can I put this point where this point will get value? I guess I'm gonna put in Good Karma. But the grind on this is ridiculous. If you were already a max level, so we'll go back to Arthur. If you were already a max level character when your character came out, you do not get to prestige the game. You have to re-grind them. Honestly, I think these character challenges are going to take longer to grind out than getting a character to 25. Or getting the demon one would be easier. But the survivor side is grindy, and this once again shows the survivor bias of the game. I'm advocating for a nerf to this because this is really punishing. If I'm a new player coming into this game and I see I need to do all of these objectives right here to prestige my character, I can't just get my character to 25 and then prestige them. In addition, now I understand why they did it. They want the challenges in place because they don't want you to just spend all your spirit points on a character you don't play, get them to prestige 5, and then you go into a game with that character and you're shit with them. That's understandable. I don't really have a problem with that. But I have a problem with how aggressively grindy these are. In addition, so you see on the right next to each one, there is a skip feature. That skip feature does not skip the entire tier, mind you. That skip feature only skips 1/3 of it. So that's about 300,000 points. And a lot of these you need to skip, which we will go tier by tier on when I cover the balancing of it. A lot of these features are ridiculous. Now, in terms of your prestige rewards that I would put in for with those extra few points, I mean, the easiest thing to do would be to put one in the stopping power and... Oh, wow, they buffed power points a little bit. Okay. I need to check Annie. Hold on. That makes me want to rework my point on her a little bit. Oh, no, she was at 4. Maybe they didn't. Okay. But this makes me want to... you know, play like, oh, I can start planning on putting my points in. So, as I'm sitting here looking at Arthur, you know, this tree to me is overrated. I couldn't even build Master of Influence because I only get 5 extra points. So what I'm sitting here looking at is, you know, I could put 1 point into this, the 4 points into this. That could be fine. I could put 3 points into this to buff that up, and I'd have 2 points left into something, so I could go for cardio, I guess. I'd have to decide which one of those two I want to do. But here's the thing. You can't really plan on doing that because of how egregious these are. The other thing I don't know if these challenges are cumulative. So, It's better explained on the warrior side. The warrior side is where I can showcase this best, on the warrior tree. Now, all the trees are the same for some characters. Dealing the damage one's not bad. Warriors are average, 50k is a standard warrior damage number, in my opinion. So, 50k damage a game, essentially that's 30 to 35 games right there. But then you look at the next one, it's 2.1 million. Okay, if that's cumulative with the previous one, I don't have a problem with that. If all of these are cumulative, I don't necessarily have a problem. Like this, at Tier 1, you have win 24 matches, and then at Tier 3, you have win 33 matches. If it's cumulative, no problem. But if you have to reset every single time, this is ridiculous, and this needs to get nerfed very quickly in terms of how grindy this shit is. Another thing I want to cover is how difficult this is. Right now, Survivor win rates are terrible. Winning matches is bullshit. Now, they have deal damage and basic units, which is fine. Basic units are the most common thing. I think if you're going up against an elite build character, that would be difficult, but that's not very common. Collecting objective points, I'm assuming that's... I don't know what the objective point is. I'm assuming on the endgame screen where they have, like, the Survivor objective, where it goes up to 2... If you win a game as a Survivor, you get the 2,000 points. I'm assuming that's what that is. That it counts for. Which means if your game ends early and you get, like, 200 points, if that game's basically a dead game. They're making this system to reward DCing a lot more. Because if you can't get your challenges done, there's no point in playing DC. But once you get a character level 25, it doesn't matter. The other thing I'm seeing as well, you still have to grind, when you prestige, you still have to grind your character up to the new cap of like 26. Which means you need, a lot of people, myself included, we use spirit points to round off levels, rather than playing them all the way through. But now you have to save your spirit points for prestige in order to skip. Which is ridiculous. Either that, or they need to give you more spirit points per level up, per account level up. But anyways, looking at some of these, okay, win 24 matches is nearly impossible. I have some characters I haven't won that many on. Then you go to Tier 2, complete 60 matches, okay, that's fine. Defeat 360 elite units, well, that's gonna be bullshit. That's nearly impossible to get done if you're not playing against characters that want to use elite builds. Because think about it. A lot of demon players in the game do not build around elites, because basic unit possession is relatively strong. Right, like Elagos, elite build is nearly gone. The Warlord and the Necromancer rarely use their elites. The Plaguebringer elite is good, but that's the hardest for you to kill as a warrior. So outside of 2 characters, you don't see a lot of elite builds. This is completely random if you get any elite kills a game. Then you go down, 150 boss units. Do you know how, first off, some players don't use boss, period. Let's start with that. So if you get a game where you're going up against somebody that is a full, like a warlord that is full, or a puppeteer that's full basic unit possession, they don't summon shit besides basic units, that's a dead game. You can't get value out of that at all. That game is a dead game. You may as well DC, because you're not getting any challenge. The most amount of bosses you're going to see a game is like 5. That's the most amount that you will ever see in a game. Because you don't get boss until level 10. About a quarter of the game is usually gone by. A quarter to half of the game is gone by at that point. It's on a pretty long cooldown. Even if you're buffing up the cooldown and the energy cost on boss unit, you're only going to get about 2 to 3 bosses a game. Very rarely are you going to see more than that. And even then, you're really only going to see that many bosses on a boss-centered build. In addition to that, the defeating boss units doesn't count if they run out of energy, which is quite common. If they despawn the unit, which is quite common. Because it's very common for them to summon a boss unit, down 1 or 2 people, and then despawn it. So, That boss unit one is terrible. This one is fine. This is all the previous ones, just with bigger numbers. And this one is 270 boss units and 66 wins 66 minutes. This is... The grind on this is way too much. Let's go back to the leader one, and let's break down this tree. So, the headshot one, like I said before, that's subjective. The finisher one, that's subjective. That's based on your playstyle. Winning matches, that's hard to do. Look at this one. Finish 21 matches without dying. I don't know if that includes going down, or that's just finish 21 matches without dying and being resurrected. Without going, you know, without being resurrected, so to speak. That means you're not going to get that unless you win the match in the first place, which is bullshit. And you can see already from this, they don't carry over. Look, it says, yeah, they don't carry over at all. But that's so dumb. You have this one, collect 1,300 and change bottles of pink F. That's not that bad on leaders because they buffed leaders. It's a lot of pink F. You have to look, you cap at around 20 pink F a game. That's a lot of pink F bottles. This one, again, same as before. 2,000 bottles of pink F. Oh my god. Hunter tree. Okay, let's look at the hunter tree. That's fairly standard. The hardest part of that is the winning matches. The damage one is easy. Because your hunters, again, hunters are 30k to 70k damage range. Easy. So, that's fine. Basic units, that's fine. Although usually your hunters don't want to kill basics. Objective points, that's fine. Matches is ridiculous. You look at this one. Again, elites. Why they're based around elites. They're the one that has the perform headshots one. Which, to be fair, they should be having the headshots one in this tree. Instead of basic units. Because you're a gun person. You want to be doing that. This one, again, 150 boss units. This one's more doable because than the warrior one because hunters are normally the ones that are there to burst down bosses. It's still ridiculous. Ridiculous. 270 boss units, bruh. This fucking... Now you look at supports, and there's one thing here I want to cover that's interesting. Because again, they don't have the shielding stat listed for supports in the endgame screen. And I still say that the shielding stat needs to be there. Because Pablo and Blacksmith are highly ineffective supports from a traditional healing sense. Because their only way to heal you and their only tangible benefit to the survivability is in their shielding. Yes, they heal you off of Shemps like all the other supports do. But if you look at all the other supports, right? Ash has 3 ways to heal you. Because he's got Shemps, he's got the melee heal, and he's got the gun heal that nobody uses. Cheryl has 2 ways to heal you. Shemps, which is buffed at that, and her healing circle. Which is pretty terrible, but still, it's an optional way to heal. Pablo has Shemps. Now, does Pablo have any way to buff Shemps? No, he's straight amulet. Now, that's fine, but there's no shielding stat to showcase how much shielding he's actually providing to the team. And I guess the reason why is to keep, like, warriors or leaders or, like, solo characters that are just spamming the shields for themselves from taking that stat. But why is that a bad thing? That's an extra stat. That's an extra stat, in my opinion. And you're making Pablo suffer, who is the shield character, who actively wants to use amulets. You're making him suffer as a character because you don't want to put that stat up. David is similar. David has 1 way to heal, which is the Shemps, but he has the soda pop on it, which they nerfed, rest in peace, because they needed that to be reworked. It was a little strong at 30%. Because I'll show you that. They nerfed it down from 30%. And this is the other thing. Some of these balance changes I'm not going to talk about, really. Because of the fact that they just made it, like, they nerfed it to where when you hit your prestige and you get it back, or it's where it was, and they give you a slight buff when you prestiged it, which really doesn't make it worth it. The only 3 changes that they really did balance-wise were David, Henry, and Arthur, like I said before. They really nerfed Soda Pop, in my opinion, from the 30% down to 20%. That's a significant difference, especially because you can't stack it. To me, if they left Soda Pop at 30%, it would be fine. To be honest, the duration is what needed to go down, not the damage reduction. The damage reduction itself was fine where it was, at 30%, without the stack on it, because it gives you just enough survivability for an extra hit sometimes, without actually being egregious, like... With the stack was egregious, I give you that. But part of the issue is the duration on it as well. The duration is 30 seconds. That's a long time. That is a long time. That can be a boss possession sometimes. Sometimes, you know, the boss stays in form longer, but that is an egregious amount of time in my opinion. I would have nerfed that rather than the damage reduction. Down to 20%, that's not really buying you any extra hits, so to speak. It might buy you a light attack. It might buy you some AI hits. You know, if the AI is really aggressive in attacking you, it might help. But against a possessed the Jeep-based build at that 20% does nothing. But that's the only way he buffs your team. He really is getting a nerf in the tier list. And you know, you have Blacksmith, which again, Blacksmith is a shield-based character, where he has a chance where his amulet doesn't break. Also, they added a cooldown to that ability, and they nerfed the damage on it. They buffed the duration on it, which is kind of funny, because it used to be there was no cooldown on it, which was ridiculous. There was a melee damage buff of 15%, and it lasted for 15 seconds. 10% at 20 seconds, that's fine to me. I think that's better, because the fact that it's a longer duration is nice. They nerfed the Weapon Master from 30% to 25%. That's completely fine, in my opinion, because of the fact that he has other shit. But, alright. So let's cover... Oh, yeah, the support tree. I forgot. That's why I'm coming here, Chuck. I'm sorry. I'm kind of rambling. So, win 24 matches is bullshit. Rack up a total score of 450,000. That's really easy. If you're a good support, that's really easy to do. Give 255,000 healing. Now, here's the issue on that. Again, Pablo and Blacksmith are never getting that done, because their healing numbers are low. Every game I play on, I am yet to have a game on Blacksmith with over 5,000 healing. Mostly because we're winning games really easy on Blacksmith. The lineups I play Blacksmith into are really fortuitous for him, and because he's a shielding character at 25 anyways. So, Pablo especially, you're not getting that. Like, a good healing game on Pablo is 5k. You have 5k healing on Pablo, you're fucking god tier. Because Pablo doesn't do healing. He's shielded. This one right here, more healing. That's not getting done. This one right here, deal damage. Finish 21 matches without dying. You're the priority target 90% of the time for the fucking demon. So that's stupid. But the whole deal damage one supports deal less damage overall, outside of a few exceptions, like the Blacksmith. You know... This one right here, revive 60 survivors from bleeding out. You're the survivor. People camp corpses. This is nearly impossible to get done. That's going to be nigh on impossible. 500k healing? Yeah, again, that's bullshit. And the rewards are the same for each character. They didn't play... The thing to me is, it would make more sense if each character had something tailor-made. Let's use the Warriors as an example, okay? Look at what Warrior Ash's skills are. Wiseman Potion, right? Shield Blast, okay. Finish Strong, okay. Chainsaw Master. So why wouldn't your prestiges be something similar? So instead of deal X amount of damage, activate your ability X amount of times. And you could make it egregious because it's a cooldown. You can spam it multiple times a game. I'm fine with that. Okay? Shield Blast. Damage enemies with your shield a certain amount of times. They should have made it tied around your abilities, particularly the ones you were upgrading. You could have made it 2 for each of these, because these are the 2 you're upgrading, so to speak, by prestiging. But they didn't choose to do that. And again, some of these changes are minuscule. Some of these changes make it not even worth changing your playstyle or going for the prestige process. So, now that we've ranted about the grind, let's talk about the actual balance, and if it actually fixed anything with the characters. So we covered David's nerf. We covered the slight nerf on Blacksmith. David's nerf is huge. The Blacksmith's nerf is minor. Henry's nerf is huge, taking the cooldown up from the 75 seconds to 100 seconds, which really, again, kills his ability to play as a more aggressive warrior. He is the defensive warrior 100%. There's no working around that now. And Arthur's rework is interesting. So Arthur's rework, if you didn't know, originally his active ability is the one that gave you the bonus sword mastery. You did not know that. That text line that says, if Lord Arthur has a sword, he inflicts extra damage. That was his sword mastery. Now, and then your starting passive was you start with a sword, and your heavy attack's got 30% melee. I don't mind them dropping it from 30 to 25. That's fine for me. In case you're wondering as well, the rework to Master of Influence, if you put your 4 points into that, you're back to normal. But to me, again, that's not worth it. Again, I'm going to keep saying that. You do get your buff back on the melee attacks if you Prestige. If you hit Prestige 1. But I like this change, because this change makes Arthur much more flexible. But now you're level 10 as your sword mastery. So this is the change to me that I think is a bit iffy. Before, Arthur was one of those characters that you had to get to level 10, so you got the light attack aura. But at that point, he was good. You were basically just leveling up to get your build set up how you wanted to. It didn't matter anymore about, like, this tree. This tree didn't matter as much. Now, he's in the exact same boat, where he's very squishy at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of your leveling with him. And then once you hit level 10, you were as good as you were going to get, because Fuel the Fire is kind of meh. But, now it's different. Because now, while you start the game, you still start the game with the sword, which is a good weapon, and that's nice. It's always nice to start with a weapon, just so you're not unarmed, particularly if you have mastery with it. But now you don't have mastery with it when you start playing as him. So your teammates benefit a lot more, which that's the whole point of a leader, to buff your teammates. But now that you don't have the weapon master until level 10, there's no reason to stay on the sword. This weapon master is still pretty good, it's 20%. So, I really think this is a missed opportunity. So, we'll start in order and cover the changes I wanted to see, if it's worth it to even Prestige. So, Leader Ash. For Leader Ash, I was going to do a video, but I got worked to death at Krispy Kreme, my apologies, about how each one of these could have realistically received a buff. And we will cover the demon in a minute. Well, let's cover the demon first. Demon's faster to do. I'm glad that they did, by the way, give the demon the buff to they get a level 1 and a level 5 skill upgrade as well. You knew that they were going to be buffing. Some of these killers were really only going to receive the damage buff, right? Because the buff to their numbers. Now, Warlord did not need this. I did not want to see straight number changes. I wanted something unique for that character, right? Because just straight buffing their numbers, making them even stronger, is kind of stupid. In this case, so you buff this one. The Prestige 1 is nice because it's essentially giving back what you had before. Same thing, the level 5 Prestige. That's not really worth it, in my opinion. Because the only thing you're getting is a bonus 5% damage and a bonus 5% maximum health. That's all you really lose by now prestiging at 5 on your power. Is it nice? Yes. Is it game-breaking? No. Especially when they could have reworked this a bit more. They could have given each of the demons a bit of more uniqueness to it. Something you could have done with Warlord could have been something like your Prestige 1 could have been AI units of influence also inflict bleed damage. Like 5% bleed damage. Or they could have done something like a level 5 Prestige could have been something like if because the basic units have the ability where they can rip their own arm off and use it as a weapon. They could have had something where if they rip their arm off, they deal like 30% more damage using that arm. They could have done something ridiculous that would force a certain type of playstyle. If they didn't want to do that, if they wanted to do straight numbers, they could have picked different numbers as well. So you could have picked something like reduce the possession cost to possess a unit by X amount while after you've activated your aura. You could have done something like increase the puke range to allies in the aura. They could have done something more unique for this. These are fine, but to me they're not worth going out of the way to get because they're minor buffs. Puppeteer, they nerfed Puppeteer a bit to make his puppet power fine. Now your level 1 prestige, I think you need that because it reduces your cooldown. That's the main reason I think they need that. If you're a Puppeteer player, you want that cooldown. That is a straight buff to you, no matter what, because the stats are pretty much the same. You don't need that level 5 one. That level 5 one's not worth it. You can get the level 1 prestige and be fine. And remember that Demon has a lot easier prestige path than Survivor does. Because Demon, 180k damage, you're going to be averaging 50k, 100k damage against Survivors if you know what you're doing, if you're building properly. That's nothing. The portals, you're doing that as you play the game. Winning matches, you're a demon, and an overpowered one at that. Still think Puppeteer is too strong. And a lot of these characters also don't have a lot of cosmetic options. The demon still is being shafted on cosmetics. Warlord has one, which is shitty. Necromancer has one, which is alright, but it's just gold armor. Nothing for Elagos, nothing for Puppeteer. The Screamers are meh. Outside of your unique prestige Screamer, it's shitty. You also don't have any way to customize your units. I think you should be able to customize your unit a bit more. As an example, alright, so here's your Demi. Let's say you like one of these skins more than the other. Why couldn't you just have the option to set one as default and pick one? Or like you could create your own custom character. That might be asking too much for them, but, here's what it is. This change right here is minuscule. Why am I going to grind a Prestige 5 for an extra 3% damage and 5% health? I'm already going to kill you by this point. Necromancer did not need the buff that he received. I'm sorry. Especially, your Prestige 1 is broken on him. Now, they nerfed the cooldown on the Flutist. That's fine. There's also meh. The Flutist needed a nerf anyways. Again, this is why I was talking about the uniqueness. All they did was change numbers. They could have done something for Warlord to increase the area of effect of your power. They could have done something for Puppet Power where, your level 5 prestige on Puppet Power could have been your effects linger to nearby AI units for a short duration. Or something like if you down a Survivor within a certain radius of your possessed unit, all of your nearby units get like a damage buff, or damage reduction buff, or speed boost. Something like that. Something crazy. As opposed to damage numbers. Skelephobia is not worth it. Oh no. Your skeletons increase fear faster. That should have been a 1, this should have been the 5. Because this is significant right here, because the motivational music is still the same. So now you're going from 90% damage increase and 50% damage reduction to 95% damage increase and 53% damage reduction. Now the damage reduction one's shit, because it's 3% extra. But again, the 5% damage reduction is huge, because Necromancer already deals an absurd amount of damage. Okay. Plaguebringer, again, Plaguebringer's getting shafted again. I don't know which one's the level 1 one or the level 5, because again, I haven't spent points in her, so I don't have the points to spend. The extra extra 5%, I'm assuming that's the level 1. And then Toil and Trouble getting a buff. Toil and Trouble buff is nice. But if that's your level 5 one, again, that's not significant enough, in my opinion, to justify. No uniqueness. Now, if you look on the Survivor side, right, I think all of the abilities got a buff on the Survivor side, which is nice, the active one. But only one of your passives did. I think a lot of characters needed their passives buffed. So let's look at Ash. His ability was one of the worst abilities in the game. And what did they do to buff it? Your Prestige 5 is not worth it. 5 seconds off the cooldown of your ability. That's nice, but you're not spamming your ability out that much. And the balance bar damage is from 150 to 180, which is, again, that doesn't help you. They could have increased the blast radius by an absurd distance, and I would have been fine with that. They did not change this at all. They changed the 2 of the 3 stats. The 2 stats they didn't need to change is what they buffed. This is not worth it at all. You have El Jefe, that affects all survivors within range. They buffed this up. That's nice, but this ability was already good because you can stack it a certain amount of times. You can get arguably 2 stacks quite easily. So this 15 damage and 20 fear resist is more 30 damage and 40 fear resist. That's what I average because I go for... If you play around the chainsaw, like I do, because the chainsaw is the best dismemberment weapon in the game, right? Every time you perform a finisher or dismember an enemy, you get your aura buff. Now, in my opinion, what they could have done for all of the start the match with the weapons, they could have changed it to where there's a percentage-based chance that you start with a higher rarity of that. You could make it at 50% common, 30% blue, 15% purple, 20% purple, 5% legend. I would have been happy with that. Give you a little bit more randomness, because one of the main issues you have is if you're playing into a certain weapon, because Ash has this problem, Arthur has this problem, both the warriors here have this problem between Ash and Scotty. Ash has this problem here. Amanda has this problem here. They are not going to be playing with better weapons, because if you want your weapon mastery bonus, which in most cases is pretty good, you might say that, well, Scotty with a common lumberjack isn't doing the same as he would with a legendary sword. True, but the attack speed bonus is there. You have to look at what the details are on your weapon master if it matters. He gets an attack speed bonus. He gets a dismemberment bonus, and they are significant enough to where the damage doesn't necessarily matter because I'm attacking faster. I'm doing more dismember or balance bar damage. There's a few that don't really like. Her machete one and his nail gun one are not significant enough to make me choose unless it's a higher rarity. Kind of like Kelly. Kelly with a legendary meat hammer is god tier, especially since they buffed her meat hammer mastery. But if it's not a high rarity meat hammer, I'm not using it over blue sword. But Ash is pretty generic. Now Annie was a hard one to rework. You could pretty much only do numbers, or you could have did something absurd. So they nerfed Slugger, by the way, which again kills any value that her balance bar build had. You were not playing into balance bar build on her at all. But okay, so they give her a slight boost in damage at Prestige 1. I guess that's worth it. That's not bad. 30%. That's a good damage range to be in. But in my opinion, it's not necessary. It's really not. At Prestige 5, they buffed her power. The damage boost from 30 to 35, that's nothing. The duration from 15 to 17 seconds, that's nice. The cooldown from 45 to 40, that's nice, but you're not really spamming your ability like that. You know. This does nothing to change Annie's playstyle. This does nothing to help her grind too. But there's not much you really could have done on her besides those numbers. Unless you want to do something unique like, you know, enemies that you inflict balance bar damage to, if their balance bar, until their balance bar breaks, you know, they deal like 10% less damage to you. They could have done something like that. They could have done something for her power, where, you know, headshot multiplier is increased from like 1.25 to 1.35 or something like that. But they don't want headshot bonus being that high. Arthur, this is the one we've been covering the most. So your weapon mastery, basically you have to Prestige 1 to get your weapon mastery back to where it was before. Okay, I guess that's nice. But they shouldn't have nerfed it in the first place when they could have done something unique, like buff attack speed as well for all enemies in your aura. They could have done something on Weapon Master. They could have done something unique on Fuel the Fire. Lord's Wrath, very minor buffs. That's nowhere near worth the Prestige 5. The cooldown drop and the melee buff is not significant enough changes. The duration is the real thing because of how Fuel the Fire works, where you want to keep using your finisher. So having it up for 18 seconds is definitely nice. But that's the only reason. You mean to tell me I get to Prestige 5 for an extra 3 seconds? No. It's not worth it. When they could have done something better. Like, they could have done something like every time you get a finisher, they could have buffed Fuel the Fire instead, where every time you get a finisher kill, anybody affected by Lord's Wrath gets a fear drop of like 10. Come down to your warriors. Okay. Again, we already covered this. Weapon Master Chainsaw could have gotten the buff. But some of these are minor. This is a really strong combo right here, and they made it stronger. For Finish Strong, I would have upgraded this, so you get more shielding per bar, which would have actively nerfed the power of Shield Blast a little bit. But instead, they buffed Shield Blast up to 160. Now, it used to be 200, so they're kind of meeting in the middle from the nerf that they gave it, which is fine. That's a nice Prestige 1 buff. I think that's probably the first one I would say. I would go out of my way to get that. Because 150 damage, 160 damage is better damage range to me than 125. And if you look at the Prestige 3, the Prestige 5, this doesn't give you anything. The extra heal is nice for solo queue. The fear reduction is nice for solo queue. The damage reduction and the damage increase is minuscule. They could have done something for reducing the cooldown. Or increasing the duration. Maybe they could have added something where, while the ability is active, you heal a certain amount of health per second. Like, 5 health per second while it's active, at the 20-second timer. But that might be a bit too much healing, you know. They didn't really do anything to nerf his power. He's still one of the strongest survivors, if not the strongest survivor in the game. Scotty's is massive. Let's talk about Scotty's is massive. They didn't buff exposure therapy, which is what they needed to buff, because its ability is shit. That's what they should have gone after. Again, they didn't rework weapons, but it's fine. Level 1, collateral damage. Radius increase. Damage dealt increase. So they made Scotty even better at Prestige 1. This is the first really good one. And even though it's a minor change, it's an extra foot radius, that's fine. An extra 2% damage, that's fine. The damage rounding is the key, from 13 to 15. It should have been 15 by default. It's not unique, but Thunder Thrust is getting a massive buff to 200 damage. Now, that's Prestige 5. Is it worth it for that? No. But it's a massive damage buff if you think about it. That's pretty significant. It's extra 50 damage, and you're getting your cooldown faster, so you can use Circle a lot more. Henry, who already got nerfed to the ground, he didn't get the buffs he needed. Your level 1 is not worth it. Oh no. 2% health and shield bar. Fuck off on that. His passives were already dog shit. They could have fixed rebound back to where it was before, where instead of it only working when you have a shield, now it works all the time. Like how it was when he released. They could have fixed shields up to now you start the match with your shield already spawned. So you start the match with 2 shield bars, right? Instead of just the 1. And you could have made it where you spawn with one of those or both of those filled automatically. This is not worth it. The extra second is nice, but the cooldown got nerfed in the first place. And basically, it goes down to 95. Yay. So happy. For an extra second. It was not needed. Mia did not receive the changes that she needed at all again. Master and Machete, they could have increased the bonuses. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because they did change one of the weapon masteries. Which is ridiculous. Blood Rain, which is terrible in the first place, did not get any buffs to it. Fear leads to anger. They just made it slightly stronger. Okay, so she gets even more damage, but she's still glass cannon. Her power is terrible. They buff your duration. If you get her to prestige 5, which again is ridiculous, she gets a slight melee buff and a slight duration increase and a slight fear reduction per kill. None of that is significant enough. If the duration went to 30 seconds, it still wouldn't be enough. If the melee buff went to 40%, I could understand. No reason whatsoever to get her up there. Hold on a sec. I thought my build was wrong. Sorry. Now, this is where the weapon masteries get a buff. So let's start with your first one. They buffed your weapon mastery on hunters for no apparent reason. Some of these are absurd. Now, the number changes don't really matter except for the reload speed reduction. Taking it from 20 to 25 is huge because reload speed is only improved from your pink F tree as a hunter. So that's huge that you're getting a slight one with your weapon mastery. Now, especially at Prestige 1. This one right here, this should have been default. The Infernal Energy being at 25%, that should have been default, in my opinion. And the cooldown is... That's really what you're playing it for, I guess, to get into Prestige 5. They could have done something better for Treasure Hunter. Like, they could have increased the range that you can see it through, or they could have increased the visibility of it a bit more. They could have done starting the match with a higher rarity. Or they could have, again, to me, the one I wanted to see, Weapon Master Double Barrel applying to the Boomstick as well. Because they are virtually the same weapon. What do I know? And another one that receives a buff to this. At level 1, you get the buff to the crossbows. And this affects all 3 crossbows. The damage buff going back to 10% puts him back where he was before. Well, he was at 20%, but that's beside the point. And the reload speed going up. Those are more significant because this affects 3 weapons. You want to get him to Prestige 1. This is minuscule. Oh no, they gave me my 5 seconds back. Oh no, they dropped the cooldown to 105. They should have dropped that to 100 seconds. But then demons would be pissy. Especially because this ability got a buff because you can't dodge traps anymore. That ability got a nice buff, but it's not worth it. You're playing that for the extra 5-second duration. It's not worth it. They could have buffed the flashlight one, which is terrible. Kelly, I mean, her abilities were already shit. First place. Prestige 1, oh no, counter shot got a slight buff. Ah, whatever will I do? Shit. Battle Frenzy could have gotten a boost, but if the bug is back, then I don't want it. Meat Hammer Mastery had already received a buff last patch, taking 60%, which is absurd. And this one. Oh no, the cooldown's at 55 seconds. Oh no, the duration, extra 2 seconds. So I get to Prestige 5 for an extra 2 seconds of dodging? Ooh, wow, thank you. So happy, so impressed. You look at Amanda, right? And again, look at how shit it is. Most people don't even play into the pistol, which you could have done weapon mastery. The pistol now applies to the revolver because she's a comp, and comps still are comps out there that still use service revolvers. It would have given her more versatility because a lot of people hate the pistol and play her around for power and completely ignore these 3 abilities right here. Accuracy counts. That's not worth it. It's an extra 1%. That is not worth it at all for Prestige 1. And the Prestige 5 is just embarrassing. Yeah, you get an extra 2 seconds, which is real nice. Cooldown, meh. Cooldown actually fucks with your perk. If you run quicker cooldown, it screws with it more. But that's besides the point. But yes, the duration is nice, but they could have put something here better, like you regen a certain amount of ammo per second while in it. For people like me, who play around the pistol, and when they run out of ammo at the end of the game, which is incredibly common on the pistol, this is the only way you can fire your gun. Supports, again, they got shafted like all the characters did with the Prestige. It's not worth it for the most part. You're playing it for your extra 5 skill points. This is a nice buff, going from 20 to 25. That's nice. But to me, they could have done something better, like increasing the attack speed with your heavy attacks would have been nice. These abilities are completely unchanged. They could have used a slight buff. And for getting the level 5, you got 2 abilities that didn't even matter. You got 2 buffs. Oh no, I get my fear drop and slightly faster. Instead of increasing the area of effect, or making it from a duration ability where you have to fit in the radius for it, or instant. They go, man, as soon as you press circle, it could have been something like snap your fingers and everybody fear drop, instead of the waving motion. Terrible. Cheryl? What did Cheryl get? Because Cheryl to me has still been a bottom tier support because she does nothing but cola girl. So when you die, and you're out of colas, you have no utility to the team. Look, I carry more colas. I spawn with more colas. Ooh, look, I drop your fear with colas. Her level 1 gives her an extra 25. Wow. And her primary heal, which had been nerfed to the ground, and still received nothing besides a 10% cooldown. 10-second cooldown take. This is one of the most insulting things because this ability needed a serious rework in order to be viable. This ability genuinely needed a rework in order to be viable. And they basically just said, fuck you, you are not getting back more healing per second, or a longer duration, or an instant heal. They could have done as it and changed it to an instant heal. Nope. They said screw, or a bigger radius. Screw you, here's 10 seconds off your cooldown. It changes absolutely nothing. There is no reason to even bother prestiging on her. That 25 health is not worth it. Pablo? What did Pablo get? 10 seconds off El Brujo. That's nice. That's nice, I guess, because he's actually crafting an item. But again, Prestige 5, all that work, all of that hours. His Prestige 1 doesn't do anything besides, oh yeah, here's more shield bar restored. Whoop-de-doo. They could have doubled that to 40, and that still would have been mediocre. That's the same thing that Ashe gets. That is next to nothing right there. They didn't buff your amulets at all, for the extra amulets. David already received the nerf on Soda Pop, right? And this one just increases... Again, it increases the damage reduction to 23, not 25, so you don't hit the damage scaling you need. But it gives you the duration. I guess the duration is nice, the extra 2 seconds. But still, the 20% damage range doesn't help. They could have buffed Nail Gun a lot. They could have added, like, piercing rounds, which is what I think the Nail Gun needed. But this one right here is pathetic. Beacon of Hope. Oh, wow. So we buffed your cooldown by 10 seconds, which is pretty commonplace. The duration's up a little bit longer. The fear reduction, meh. This is all meh on him. It's not worth it. And the last on Blacksmith. Blacksmith you definitely need to get. Your level 1 prestige here is significant because you get the extra melee and the extra duration. That extra duration is key for me. But the cooldown on the amulet usage means you can't spam him like you could before on the amulet. When instead they could have buffed Tough as Nails further. They could have given you an extra 100 on Tough as Nails instead of changing that at all. And this one right here, for level 5, oh wow, you start with more scraps now. You start with 15 scraps. Now that's significant because you need 20, you can only hold 20 scraps at the start of the game. So now at the start of the game, you can spawn a better blue weapon. This is relatively nice. Is it worth Prestige 5? No. So, I'm going to end this video right here. I have another video I want to put out. It's probably going to be just as long. But in my opinion, there is no reason whatsoever for the grind. Either the effects needed to be bullshitly better, making everybody overpowered as fuck, which would hamper people like me that didn't have 10 million, 100 million spirit points to spend. Or they need to take that grind down significantly. That grind is egregious, and you are going to lose players because this prestige system did nothing to bring people back if you didn't have 100 million spirit points already.